I can't fathom that. That is psychopath behavior right there. Some of these books I just connected with emotionally. I might take 1-star reviews very personally, so we'll see how this goes. We're not going to be touching every single 5-star I did this year. We're only going to be doing standalones or first books in the series. Just because I do want this to be as spoiler-free as possible, I'd really hate for you to watch this and then get something spoiled for you, so I'm going to be extra careful not to do any spoilers today. We're going to start with one of my personal favorites for the year, Once Upon a Broken Heart. Now, I will probably take the 1-star reviews of this book extremely personally, so I'm just gonna do my best. I did an entire vlog just going over reading those books while I was on spring vacation, and let me tell you, I just connected with the main character of that book in a way that I just cannot describe with words. Wow, okay. This is a long one, but I'll just read the intro because it's spoiler free. Put it simply, Once Upon a Broken Heart is a hot mess. The premise promises a fairy tale, but what Garber delivers is a confused nightmare with an annoyingly naive protagonist. Hey, careful what you say about my girl Evangeline. A one-dimensional cast of supporting characters and a truly WTF-inducing plot. Wow, this person really went on and wrote an entire thesis. Let me address the annoyingly naive, because I did have a friend read this book, and she said that she didn't like how Evangeline was making dumb decisions. And in my opinion, what I think is so underrated about this book, it actually solves a very fantasy pet peeve of mine, and that is when a girl from a completely normal world, magical-less, comes into a magical world and all of a sudden just knows how to function, knows how to do this and that. She doesn't really seem fazed by everything. What I loved about Evangeline is that she is so out of her ballpark and she knows it, and she doesn't know how to act because she's never been around magic before. Like, she doesn't even know magic really exists. It's more of just like a myth up until this point for her, and I feel like how she responds is how I'd respond if all of a sudden I got whipped off to like a magical island. And not only does she have to function in a magical place, but she gets thrown into like the political craziness between very powerful magical beings. So I personally like how naive she is at the beginning, because to me it reflects how a normal person actually would behave if they were thrown into a magical world. So that's just my personal opinion, and to me I thought that was refreshing. I can see where she's coming from, but I also just strongly disagree. Next is Scythe by Neil, how in the world do I say that? Shusterman? Neil Shusterman. There is not that many 1-stars. Guys, I guess I just have good taste. That's what I'm learning today. The world building wasn't that good. The writing wasn't that good. The story wasn't that good. The plot was a joke. There were twists that were telegraphed like the bat signal, and the ending was so predictable that I was just waiting for the end to finally roll around because I pegged that it was going to happen long before I got there. And then they kind of get into more spoiler type stuff. I think if you don't like the concept of AI taking over the world and what life would look like if AI took over the world, then this book just isn't for you. Because even in this woman's review, she mentions that based off of the blurb on the cover, she didn't think she was gonna like it. Okay, so then why'd you read it and then write a 500-word essay about why you didn't like it? Like, the book was set up for failure. Like, they started the book knowing that they weren't gonna like it. Sounds like a personal problem if you ask me. As for the next book, which is Belladonna, I love this trilogy. I read the entire trilogy in my ABC reading challenge, and I'm so glad I did. This is probably one of the most aesthetically pleasing dark fantasies I've read in a very, very long time, and it just scratched an itch in my little romantasy brain. Especially that last book. Oh, don't even get me started. That was phenomenal. Honestly, listen, I know my opinions are my opinions, and I can look at things objectively, and I can see why someone would give Belladonna 1 star. It just was not me, and I'm kind of just really scared to read them. Sincerely, no. Anyone who says this book is good is straight up lying. I'm not lying. This book single-handedly cured my surely if the cover is drop-dead gorgeous, it can't be that bad delusion. That is actually really funny. I did pick up this book because of the cover, and I'm really glad that I did. It was actually a bookstagrammer who was posting, you know, like an aesthetic spread of like books and bookish type things on her bed, and I saw this book and I was like, that looks cute. And then I realized she'd posted it a couple times, and in one of them she posted her review and basically said, it was a really good, like, aesthetically pleasing, vibey romantasy. And I was like, say no more. Some people saying it was bland, predatory behavior in the romance. I don't see where you're getting that. I think everyone who likes this book has daddy issues. Now that's just mean. That is rude. Next is Divine Rivals. Although the series itself was not a 5 stars, the first book was 5 stars. I actually sobbed my eyes out in a vlog reading this. So that was funny. A little traumatizing, but funny. This is also one of the ones I'm scared of reading the 1 stars for. The world building is so bad that at some point the main male character says he loves summer because it's when baseball season is back. They use lifts and have electricity but use typewriters. The war resembles the fighting strategies they use in World War I, and there's magic and gods. The romance is horrible. I disagree. I strongly disagree. The romance is what made me in love with it. The dialogue is so cheesy. That's fair. And cringe. It does not even allow you to have a cozy, fun read. It's just strange. The strangeness is what makes it so refreshing and fun. But okay. I do not understand the hype. I think we need to start reading more to acclaim better books, because being over 25 and having this as a majority literary favorite is just bad. Okay. She writes letters like I did when I was heartbroken at 13 over my Minecraft boyfriend. That one's actually really funny. World building, don't know her. Yeah, I mean, there were definitely times where I wanted to know why things were the way that they were, and I did feel like there were some plot holes when it came to world building. That is very true. To all the girls on Book Talk that recommended you read this after Fourth Wing, I hate you. I mean, hate is a strong word, but if someone's recommending you read this if you loved Fourth Wing, I think they were just trying to make a TikTok that day. And I would never say names, but there are definitely some booktubers and some book talkers out there that I feel like just make content to make content, and they're not actually putting any thought into it or opinions into it, or really just like care for the person consuming the content into it. It's all very like selfishly motivated. Sometimes when I hear people be like, if you love this book, read this book. I've read both, and I, for the life of me, am like, why in the world are you drawing a connection to these two books? I do see that a lot, and unfortunately, I think the reality is just that those are quick, easy videos to make that often get not only a lot of likes, but a lot of shares, and it boosts that video in the algorithm, so I think a lot of creators do them for that reason. I personally have avoided doing those kinds of videos because you can only really draw a connection to one thing. So let's say I say ACOTAR, and I say, if you loved ACOTAR, you'll love Belladonna. Like, maybe there's fantastical elements and there's romance in it, but besides that, there's not really many connections to it, so it just doesn't make sense. Like, I could say that, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I would be very wary of listening to people who say, if you like this, then you should read this, unless they specifically say, if you like the romance in this, if you like the female main character in this book. Like, there has to be some specific connection that they're drawing. So that's my personal opinion. Now onto a book that I will take very personally if someone hates this book. Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This book might just be what made me fall in love with YA murder mysteries. I actually just started the second book in the series today, so I'm very excited. I hope no one would post a spoiler for a future book on the book one review, because I will cry. The TV show is actually really good, by the way. I did a whole reading vlog where I read Good Girl's Guide to Murder while tandem watching the show. So I read as many chapters as would be covered in the next episode, and I went back and forth between the TV show and the book. It was really fun. From the moment she said holy pepperoni, I realized I'm too old to be reading this book. I don't know how old this person is, but I'm 24 and I loved this book, so I'm sad to say that majority of the bad reviews on this one are just like to be funny. Like, for example, one of them is like, I made a Goodreads account just so I could give this book a 1 star. I doubt that, but you know, I'm glad you got your joke in there. I'm sure someone laughed at that. A lot of people are saying it's really young. I think personally that's why I liked it. I have learned about myself that when it comes to murder mysteries, I only like YA murder mysteries. I do not like adult murder mysteries. They're always way too dark, very depressing. YA books just have a way more fun approach to like the solving part of the murder mystery. I don't know. Like, this is kind of a realization that hit me very hard this year, and I realized, like, if it's not YA murder mystery, I don't want to read murder mystery. I ate this book up. Like, from chapter 1, I was hooked. Next off is Powerless. I'm a little scared. Y'all are gonna hurt my feelings with this one. Honestly, I just loved how the book made me feel. I don't think there was anything about the book that, like, screamed amazing literature to me, but I did really enjoy the vibes. I was there for the vibes. The vibes were immaculate. There are a good bit of 1 stars. In a very unkind and very vulgarly worded review, said you should probably get an editor. Which, yeah, I mean, there were definitely some parts where I felt like it was a little underdeveloped, but it was also this author's first book, so I wasn't really expecting it to be, like, insane. DNF'd at page 308. Whoa. For lack of originality, apparently. 308. Yeah, this book's almost 500 pages, so they got a big chunk of the way through. Another person saying that an editor did not read this. I finished it. That's the nicest thing I could say about this book. I've read fan fictions written by 12-year-olds on Wattpad with a better plot than this. What in the Hunger Games, Divergent, Serpent in the Wings of Night, Throne of Glass, Young Elite, Shatter Me fandom mashup is this? That is really funny, and I definitely do understand that comment, although because I loved all those series, I did enjoy Powerless. Yeah, like, it's not the most original plot ever, but sometimes you want something that is familiar, and I think that's why a lot of people like Fourth Wing so much, is because Fourth Wing had a lot of elements of other books that people enjoyed. Not saying that Powerless and Fourth Wing are necessarily on the same level per se, but I did love that Powerless was able to give me a lot of the similar feelings of some of my childhood favorite books, with also being a book that I've never read before. So maybe that's a hot take. I purely rate based off of vibes, so the vibes were immaculate. That's all I care about. Now this one I'm really excited about is 0 stars, Do Not Recommend by MJ Wasper. This, I can see why people would give this 1 star. It was very much random and outlandish and silly. What I will always tell people is that if you've seen the movie Free Guy, you know how everything just feels so like, what in the world? Like, every single time something happens, you're so confused, but it still, like, engages you. I feel like this book was a lot like that. Like, honestly, the entire time I read this book, I was imagining Ryan Reynolds is the main character because it just seems like one of the comedies he would star in. Listen, if you DNF the book, I'm not gonna read your rating. Like, maybe that's cruel, especially when people rate it 1 star and they're like, DNF 10%. 10%? Are you kidding me? You didn't read the book. You can't rate it. Here is a reasonable, fleshed out review. This was a truly awful book. The conversation seemed unrealistic and overdone, let alone the poor storyline and execution. I honestly cannot believe I finished. 0 stars, do not recommend. I mean, love how you incorporated the title in there. I do understand what they mean. I personally just really enjoyed this book. It's definitely like, if you love not knowing what to expect, things being like comedically random, this was not enjoyable. The cover and clever title do not at all match what's inside. The book was full of really obnoxious stereotypes played off as jokes. The whole thing was over the top and I didn't particularly like any of the characters. I skipped about 100 pages in the middle. What? What? Hold on. So you started the book, and then at some point you were like, I'm gonna skip 100 pages, and then continued to read the book? That is psychopath behavior right there. What? I can't fathom that. I do enjoy reading 1-star review books of books that I did not like, but reading 1-star reviews of 5-star books is so hard. So I'm kind of glad this is over. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of Vlogmas. In the meantime, why don't you subscribe so you get notified when I post that next video, and of course get caught up if you aren't already in the Bookmas playlist.